Welcome to a truly special edition of your favorite current affairs show, The Point of View. Tonight we're speaking to a polymath, a man of many parts who served Ghana in many ways. And on his 82nd birthday, we've come home to talk to him about his reflections on life to coincide with the recent launch of his autobiography, which is part one of his two-part autobiography. Professor Addae-Mensah is my guest. We'll talk to him when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back. So we are here at the residence of Professor Addae-Mensah to talk to him about life. He recently launched My Life, a historical narrative, part one of his autobiography, and today is his 82nd birthday. Happy birthday, Prof.
Thank you very much.
How does 82 feel?
Just like 81.
So you were born in 1942?
Yes.
My goodness.
1942.
Wow.
10th January.
10th January?
Yes.
So by the time Ghana was independent, you were conscious, you understood what was happening?
Oh, yes, I did. I was informed too in secondary school.
And of course, we know your father knew Nkrumah, so you described
Yes,
Nkrumah.
yes,
So
yes.
you were very aware. Did you understand what it meant?
I was very much aware.
Mm.
I was very much aware at independence.
Wow.
I had been involved in the pre-independence activities, so it didn't come to me as a surprise at all. No.
And we launched your book a few months, I think last month.
Yeah.
First question, why is it a two-part autobiography?
Well, when I started writing it, I thought I could put everything into one volume. Mm-hmm. But the more I wrote, the more I realized that, you know, there were so many issues that needed to be touched on. Mm-hmm. And then by the time I got to the end of my first 40 years, it just so happened that it was on 10th January 1982 that I found myself in Abidjan.
Wow.
On political exile.
Incredible.
So I said, this must be a very good point to end the first 40 years of my life. Because what then happened 40 years after that was a totally different issue, which could tell a totally different story. So it was a very convenient time to end the part one. Secondly, if I had continued to write everything, the book would have been so big that, first of all, it would put people off in reading it. Secondly, it won't sell. Nobody can buy it.
This has been one of the most fascinating reads, and I do read a few autobiographies. It has everything. First thing that came to me was, were you deliberately chronicling these things as you lived them? Because you have names, times, quotes, funny stories, anecdotes, records. How do you live?
Well, I don't know how to answer this question, but maybe the best way to handle it is, fortunately, God endowed me with a certain gift, a gift of remembering details about things. Things tend to imprint themselves on my mind very easily, and once they do, they just stick. And it was as a result of this characteristic or habit that I earned my current or still nickname of Azurara the Chronicler.
Azurara the Chronicler?
Yes, from my classmates when we were in secondary school in Achimota. Because our history master was always talking about this Azurara the Chronicler, who was a well-known Portuguese historian. And the way he could sort of tell the history of not only Portugal but the world. Our history master said, you are able to remember things like Azurara.
And it stuck.
And it stuck.
And the rare privilege of having a nickname from Achimota till 82.
Yes.
So if you hadn't become a chemist, because again, I need to say to viewers that Prof is a true polymath, and by that I mean, apart from being a trained chemist, you can say that Prof is a journalist, you can say Prof is a historian, he's an educationist, you can even say that he is, an administrator. You can even say he's a politician.
Yeah.
And he's excelled at all. If you hadn't chosen chemistry, just reflecting on the 82 years, what would you have been?
would have been in some part of the humanities, maybe law, maybe. During our time, business studies was not all that fashionable.
Yeah.
You know, I would probably have ended up somewhere in the
humanities.
humanities.
Law most likely.
Well, maybe. But let me tell you another story. I went for a meeting at the World Health Organization, and I met one of my Achimota School mates, Dr. Boateng, and he was introducing me to one of his WHO colleagues. He was an employee of WHO. And he said, oh, meet my schoolmate. He was my senior in school. If he hadn't been a chemist, he would have been a concert pianist.
Which is quite interesting. That's good. By the way, the appreciation of classical music is clear in your narration of Achimota School. And so we'll come there. What I want to do with this interview, if you don't mind, is because there's so much to say, I want to use the geographical places you've lived to attempt to open up issues around those areas. So, for example, you lived in Takwa for many, many years. You are from the Western region, right? And then you were in the Jumaku Bisiase and then the Central region for some time before you came to Achimota School. I first talk about the Western region. In the days that you were born, it held promise. The port town of Takoradi, the potential of mining, agriculture. For some reason, even though Western region is still a very endowed region, they have very poor resources. They did a demonstration recently about bad roads. The citizens there are not happy. Now it's been divided into Western. And they produce Kwame Nkrumah for us, right? What will a Western region person think about Ghana, that after all that we've given to Ghana, we still have the worst roads? The region hasn't really benefited as much. If you look at a per capita contribution to the country's development, would you say?
I will say I'm really full of disappointment because the phrase "only the best comes from the West" was not an idle sort of phrase. It was indeed based on some truth. You know, I lived my early life in what used to be called the Western Province, which encompassed both the current Central region and the Western and Western North regions. And the potential was there. Education was good. We had good teachers. We had good everything. And the resources were there. Industrialization of the country at that time was virtually based in that region. And yet, infrastructure has been the bane of the region all these years. I mentioned in my book the fact that when I was coming to Achimota in 1956, a town like Takwa, with all the gold it had produced, the road from Takwa to Takoradi was untarred. And we were drinking water from wells. It wasn't until 1976 that Takwa got pipe-borne water from a dam, a small dam built across the Bonsa River. Now you know what the state of the Bonsa River is. Terrible. So now virtually Takwa is without good potable water.
Meanwhile, we were exporting minerals that were extracted from
gold from Takwa and Pristia and Aboso, manganese from Nsuta, bauxite from Awoso, with the iron deposits at Opomanso still waiting to be touched.
Not to talk of rubber.
Not to talk of rubber. The rubber plantation and the tire manufacturing factory that was built at Bonsa, which has now collapsed.
And then timber.
And timber from all the way to Samra then cocoa. Western region is now the biggest producer of cocoa
for the country.
All the way to Enche, Asankregua, and all those places.
And then you have the port. So this is supposed to be the industrial hub of the country.
Exactly, at that time.
So what went wrong?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. You don't know. And now oil.
It's unbelievable.
So what has the Western region done?
And then in addition, they gave us, but by the way, some would say maybe Nkrumah's national vision and the fact that he wasn't insular, and Nkrumah was very detribalized. So Nkrumah did not say, I'm from the Western region, and therefore I would give the region an advantage.
Yes.
Maybe that was part.
Yeah, it was part. But then, why didn't other leaders follow that example? Why did the new leaders become more and more parochial in their attitude towards the country and towards their own regions?
One thing that fascinates me was how, in traveling, you stated in the book, when you're coming for your interview, you came by rail.
No, when I was coming for the interview,
Yes.
I came by road.
Yeah.
And when I was
Going to school?
When I was going to school
Yes.
for the first time too, it was by road.
Okay.
But by Form 3,
Yeah.
Nkrumah had constructed the Achiasi to Kotoku railway line.
Mm-hmm.
So you could come by rail, you get on the train at 8:30 a.m. at Takwa. It leaves Takoradi at 7 o'clock. By 8 o'clock, it's at Takwa. 8:30 you leave, and you go through Huni Valley, Fosu, to Achiasi, then Achiasi through Akroso, then to Diaso, and then to Addae-Mensah, and then to Kotoku and Accra. By 3 p.m., you are at Achimota Station. And then you
Without
walk,
fail.
Without fail. And you don't even carry your luggage. Your luggage is brought separately. So we walk to school. Then the next morning, the school truck will go to main Accra railway
And
station.
come and bring your things.
And bring our things. Everything.
This is the early 60s.
Yes. Everything will be intact. It was from 58. And this went on till the 70s.
We recently did an interview about the rail sector, and even the secondary line
Yes.
is not working.
No.
Not to talk of the one you just referred to. So it's a bag of missed opportunities.
Well, you know, the main station was Sekendi. Takoradi was considered to be just a harbour station, though it was the headquarters of the railways. Mm-hmm. But the trains that went to Kumasi all started from Sekendi. And then when they get to Kubyokrom, a line from Takoradi will discharge the passengers from Takoradi to join the main train that had come from Sekendi. Mm-hmm. And then they will continue either to Kumasi through Huni Valley or to Accra also through Huni Valley.
People say that, and I don't want to do a discussion on colonialism, but people discuss the rail lines and say, for example, that they were essentially to extract the raw materials and export them raw, so that they are not lateral, but they were basically north-south.
Yeah, but because that was the economy at the time.
But it's taken us 60-something years, and we've not been able to change
So
that.
whose fault is it? Why didn't we change it? If we had recognized this, why did we not change the system?
And as we speak, we have a railway ministry, but we've still not been able to crack the sector.
You know, there is a joke that Nkrumah or the colonial people wanted to build a railway line from Takoradi through Cape Coast to Accra. Yeah. But the Cape Coast people and the Elmina people said the train will kill their children.
Are you
so
serious?
The project was, it's apocryphal, but you know, it's just one of the stories told to show why the railway lines were all north-south and not east-west.
Let's talk about Takwa and mining. One of the big issues in Ghana these days is they talk about Boase, which is emblematic of the failure of mining to develop communities. But in your book, Takwa was that much earlier. You spoke about the fact that they didn't have drinking water till the 70s.
Yes.
Meanwhile, it was producing a lot of... I visited Takwa recently. It's a very large town, larger than some regional capitals.
Yes.
Quite a contemporary town with people from different parts of the world.
Yes.
What are your thoughts and reflections on what Takwa means for the failure of mining?
It's a complete encapsulation of how we have failed in making mining build this country. And maybe we are still failing. We are still making the same mistakes. We just gave the land to people to mine. They gave us some small royalty, and we were happy. And we never thought of how much they were taking out. You know, something that recently really baffled me. I went to Axim, I went to Fort St. Anthony, and Legon has a small museum there. And I saw some of the documents, the colonial government documents exhibited there. And one document caught my eye. A gold concession from the mouth of the Ankobra through Takwa, through Prestia, through the source of the Ankobra River. They described the place as the banquet area. It was all taken over. And the agreement that they signed was not with the chiefs. It was with the Asafo companies. And it was not a proper signature. It was just some cross, not even a thumbprint. So those who signed it didn't even know what the terms and conditions of the agreement were.
So even though we're in 2023 and we are discussing lithium, the issues are similar.
The issues are just the same. We are just doing the same thing over. Only the players have changed, and the magnitude of the benefits have changed in one way or the other. But it's still the same.
Suggesting that the problems may not necessarily even be based on the political system we have, because if you look at the past 65 years, we've had military dictatorships, we've tried a parliamentary system, a presidential system, winner takes all. So you could say that some of Ghana's structural economic problems are agnostic to even the political system you run.
Yeah, well, some people argue that, it's because we don't have the capital. If you want to develop your resources, you need capital. And if you don't have the capital, somebody else who has the capital will come and do it for you and give you a share. But there is another school of thought which says that if you have the resource and you don't have the capital, you don't have to use those resources during your time. Let it remain in the soil. Posterity will come and make use of it. Maybe they will have better ways of doing it, or maybe they will even have the capital to do it.
Quite interesting. Your next junction was Central Region, the Ejumako area. It was funny how...
No, that was actually before Takwa.
Okay, let's talk about that though.
Yeah.
I remember you talked about how the road to the Central Region started from Isawam and then went through Swedru.
Yes.
Because now when you're going to Central Region, you have to use the coast.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most dangerous roads because it's prone to accidents.
Yeah.
We're discussing how the potential of Central Region for tourism has not been developed because that road has so much traffic at Kasua, Buduburam has joined. What are your thoughts on that? That for the massive tourism potential of Central Region, even getting to Cape Coast from Accra by road is such a chore.
Yeah, after the Accra-Temamoto way, I would have thought that the next really sensible thing to do would have been to dualize the road from Accra to Cape Coast and probably continue to Takoradi, even before thinking of Kumasi, even though Kumasi is the second city of the country. But you need to go to places where your resources can be maximized. That's my personal thought. But we didn't do that because the tourism potential at the time had also not been developed. So, and of course, Ashanti region was still the biggest producer of cocoa and also the Obuasi gold. So maybe it made sense to concentrate on the Accra to Kumasi road. But maybe if we had done the coastal line, which we had neglected also in the development of our railway system, maybe our economic potential in the belt, Accra, Central, Western, would have been much better than it is now.
It's quite interesting that when you had the chance to go to a secondary school, you chose to go to Addae-Mensah because for somebody who is from the Western region, who spent some time in the Central region, Central region was the hub of education. Infantry School, Addae College, and St. Augustine's. But you opted for Addae-Mensah.
Yeah, the story is told in the book, but our eldest brother was at Infantry. The one after him went to Fijai and St. Augustine's. When I first took the common entrance in Standard 5 or Form 2 at the time, I actually chose Prempeh.
Is it?
Because my cousins had chosen Prempeh and I wanted to follow them. And that year I was the only one who passed from our Form 2 class. The other person who could have passed apparently did not even take the exam without my knowledge, without anybody's knowledge. His father was a schoolmaster. He was giving the money, but he didn't he didn't go and take the exam. So to our surprise, he didn't even come and take the exam. Otherwise, he would have passed. But the following year, of course, he went to Addae-Mensah. But when I passed Prempeh, I didn't get any scholarship. Then the one who was potentially going to be my guardian, because I had lost my parents at the age of 7, so I was being looked after by my grandmother and my grandmother's younger brothers. You know, he said that, Prempeh is only about 6 years old. I don't want you to go to a school that is only 6 years old. Forgetting that when he went to St. Augustine's in 1937,
it was only 2 years old.
No, it was 6 years old. 1931
yes.
to 1937.
Yeah.
You know. So, of course, as an excuse, I didn't go to Prempeh. So the following year, I was going to take the common entrance again, and my brother suggested I should take Achimota. And we had a few Achimota school teachers also. Though we had more Mfantsipim teachers than Achimota school. Teacher Gansa was Achimota. And then I had seen Dr. Amfom as the doctor at Takwa and all that, even though Dr. Badu also followed him from Mfantsipim. But I had a choice of which school is greater between Mfantsipim and Achimota. And I decided that, let me...
We will talk about that when we come back.
Yeah,
we are taking a conversation with Professor Addae-Mensah, who's there. He's celebrating his birthday today, 10th January. We're recording this show today, but obviously he's a man of many parts. When I entered the university, he was the VC at the time. He's done many things in life, and we are happy to be talking to him about the first part of his 2-part autobiography, which is My Life, a historical narrative. Stay with us. Welcome back to The Point of View. Tonight we're chatting with Professor Addae-Mensah. Most people will say former VC of the University of Ghana, Legon, but trust me, that doesn't even begin to tell the story. We're discussing his new book, launched in December 2023. His autobiography, part 1, from age 0 to 40. He's now 82, and we're just trying to use the stations of his life to enter some key national discussions. You went to Achimota School.
Yes.
One of the things I read when I interviewed people from Mfantsipim School was that the rivalry between the schools was because even though Mfantsipim was the first school, the colonial government spent more money on Achimota. And in a sense, they wanted to make Achimota a flagship. So Achimota training had more things. It was swimming, cricket, there's art, classical music. And you describe how 6 of you walked barefoot for the interview and met only one lady who was wearing shoes. How does Achimota sit in that, creating the first proper elite for Ghana, modern Ghana?
Yeah, Achimota was perhaps the first, and for a very long time, the only properly government secondary school in the country. The others, there were about 11 of them. They were called assisted secondary schools. Then there were others like Fijai initially, who were called the encouraged secondary schools. And that determined how much help you got.
Assisted versus encouraged?
Yes. How much you got from government. The encouraged secondary schools were private schools that had been started by entrepreneurial people, but who were really doing well and were on their way to become fully fledged assisted secondary schools, like St. John's Secondary. Many of them were church-based. Fijai, even Apam Secondary School started.
So assisted will be Mfantsipim, Addae-Mensah,
St. Augustine's, Prempeh College, Opokuware,
Presby Boys,
Wesley Girls, Holy Child, St. Monica.
And then the encouraged will be the Fijais and those Amazing. So Addae-Mensah was a stand-alone.
Yes, it was a stand-alone school for a very long time until Tamale Government Secondary School came.
Amazing.
Yes.
That then explains, because you are in school, Philip Behu is teaching you music.
Yes.
You are learning from the best poets.
Yes.
Almost every field. Ifri Mamu is there as well.
Yeah.
That gave you an advantage, right, in terms of forming an elite, because almost everybody you mentioned in your class became a somebody.
Well, I believe you can say so for Mfanspim, for Addae-Mensah, because they were also well catered for by the missionaries. Initially, they had a lot of problems. Mfanspim had a lot of problems because the Methodist mission had no money. Even Addae-Mensah started getting government subvention before Mfanspim.
Wow.
Addae-Mensah was established in 1909 or 1910 or somewhere there. By 1913, they had qualified for government assistance. Mfanspim was still not being assisted. It was still getting money only from the Methodist, and the Methodist Church had this policy of having their schools sponsored only by the local people. So Mfanspim at the beginning had a lot of difficulties, but they nearly closed down. But with time, I think it was after about 1920 something that they also started getting full government subvention.
I don't have enough time to talk about the training you had there, where you are doing pottery, weaving, and these physical things.
Yes,
and
carpentry. I always stress
and
that.
yet you are also appreciating Tchaikovsky
Exactly.
and things. So that's a very unique situation.
It's unique,
The question I have though is, we have secondary education now, and somehow the schools you mentioned are still the category A's. For some reason, the others have not been able to catch up. So if you look at even the secondary schools in Ghana today, the top 20 or 30 are all within the group of the Addae-Mensah, the assisted, and then the encouraged. I mean, how does that sit with you?
I think it's all because those schools, of course, I forgot to mention your own school, Presec.
Well, I mentioned it, but you didn't.
Okay.
I did. And of course, Accra Academy as well.
And Accra Academy. They were in that category. Those were the only schools that were doing intercore.
Which was called the Cadbury Cup.
No,
Agri Shield, forgive me. Agri
Shield.
Agri Shield.
Yeah.
Up to 1960 something.
Up to 1961.
Good.
Yeah. Then 62, Nkrumah brought all the new schools, the Ghana Education Trust schools and all.
So you are talking of Swedru Secondary School, you are talking of...
Accra Girls. That's how we discovered Alice Hanum as an athlete, because before Alice Hanum, Accra Girls was not in that intercore thing. So she wouldn't have been discovered because their school would never have come to
participate
to the intercore.
So Nkrumah broke the elite, because there were just too few schools.
Yes.
By bringing in these...
By bringing in the Ghana Education Trust schools, about 30 of them between 1958 and 1964.
Wow.
It virtually changed the direction of education.
It opened it up.
It opened it up to as many people as possible.
So that was the transformational move
It was a transformational move. But then, many of the then assisted secondary schools carried along with them the traditions that they had built over the years. These new schools were then only beginning to build their own traditions.
Take longer.
And it's going to take a very long time. Of course, some of them have really matured to rise to levels that can be reckoned with. But still...
It's funny, my boss Samens went to Swiss school, and this year they are 65.
Yes.
And I compared that to Addae-Mensah. You are 90 what?
95 also. We'll be 100 in a few years' time.
That's great. The question though is, I don't fail to remember when you said you needed a scholarship to go to Addae-Mensah, right? So some will say that on paper, free secondary school makes sense. On paper.
Yeah.
So, but it's become very controversial because almost everybody is saying the government should review it. The only group that doesn't want to review it is the government itself. Do you understand their recalcitrance in not wanting, maybe that's not a good word. I don't know what word to use.
When we talk of the, free SHS in principle is a very good idea. Because if I hadn't had somebody else paying my fees, I would have probably ended up doing something else. But the fact is, we are in a society where we have people who can actually pay. Yeah. In the old system, it was not only academic performance that could get you a scholarship. They also looked at your economic station, your needs. So, and the scholarships were given before you entered the school, not after. If it was after, a lot of people wouldn't have got the initial fee to get in. So everything was assessed through the interviews. You know, after passing the exam, you went to an interview, and during the interview, they were able to extract all these factors from the way they interviewed you and the way you answered your questions. Yeah. You know, so you may get the assistance right from the beginning. All you would need to do is probably to raise the initial money to pay the entrance fee, etc. And then when you get to the school also, with your academic performance, you may win other financial benefits. The problem with the current free SHS is adding the boarding factor to the tuition factor, which has made it very difficult to provide the wherewithal for the actual academic work and concentrated on the feeding aspect, which itself is not enough. And that's where some of us think that these things have to be looked at again. If
we look at civil society and all the groups saying review, there appears to be a meeting of minds that at least you could say, if you made tuition free and then parents cater for their own boarding, or if they can't, they find a day school, you will still educate as many people as possible without compromising on quality.
On quality, And you will get the funds to feed into other equally important aspects of education, like textbooks, support, etc., etc.
Hopefully the government will listen.
I hope so.
Let's come to the role of sport.
Yeah.
Because this week my station has decided to partner with the Athletics Federation to do what is called the NISAC, National Invitational, because there isn't support for interco, properly so called. Exactly. Jamaica produced Usain Bolt because their version of interco has national television coverage. Exactly. What are your thoughts? Because you were a sportsman, hockey, goalkeeper. You were quite the active person.
Yeah, I was.
What are we losing by just focusing on just national science and math quiz? The secondary education, the interco aspect has really gone down.
It has another facet. This truncation of being in the secondary school, and by that I mean what used to be Form 1 to Upper 6, squeezing that into some 3 sort of 2.5 years, I may say, is what has brought about all these things. Because you go to Form 1, you have another 6 years ahead of you. You have the freedom to explore and find your niche, find where you fit in, enjoy the things that you want to enjoy, learn other things that you may even abandon over the years. But you would have had the experience, you would have experienced it somehow. There was no real swimming pool at Takwa. Only the mining big men had swimming pools at Nsuta and ABA mines. We, the children, who were swimming in streams. But I got to actually, because I could throw my hands around a bit, I found myself into the house swimming team, So you get the time to experience these things. Now you get to the school. Within 2.5 years, you are going to do your exams. Who has the time to go and learn how to play the piano or the flute? You want to get 8 A's so that you can get to medical school. When it really, for the first 3 years of our schooling, it didn't really matter, what grades you got.
So did the Jobo committee miss a trick in their recommendations that eventually led to what we have?
If you look at the real Jobo committee thing, what they recommended is not what we are doing.
Really?
No. In fact, if you look at their original, I think they even suggested that the so-called junior secondary schools should be part of the existing secondary schools.
Okay.
As the Nigerians did.
Yes.
You know, so that you will have the advantage of being taught by the same people.
So if you go to Nigerian JSS and SSS, it's the same school?
It's the same school.
But here we've separated BC, WASI.
So and there is a certain psychological barrier. The so-called junior secondary schools, they still work the Saito. The mental thing is that they are still in JHS, you know, and then the quality of teaching is different.
Because a secondary school teacher is obviously higher level.
You will not get an Adrian Sherwood who taught me English in Form 1 and taught Kwampianim and Co. English literature in Upper 6. You won't get such a person. You won't get Mr. Pocock, who taught Nana Susubribi Krobi Asante English literature in Lower 6 and taught some of us in Form 2.
Wow.
You won't get that. So you will enter your senior high with some sort of deficiency.
So we didn't implement Jobo properly?
Not at all.
Wow.
When it was re-reviewed, you know, we cut certain things out. And we decided, and also Jobo had another angle where if even you didn't get into the junior secondary school from the senior secondary school from the junior, you had another
Is that the middle
route.
school?
Yes. So that, you know, you could also find your own way through another academic pathway. But we've now sort of straitjacketed everybody into this new system, which is putting so much pressure on the young people.
3 years.
And making it impossible to
the
discover
head
themselves.
teachers are also struggling.
And the teachers,
by the way, how do the universities view the SHS products? Have you done a review? Because I think you were VC for both.
Yes.
Because when I came to Legon in 2000, I came with SSS.
Yes.
But you had already had A-level people come.
Yes.
And when I came for maths, I did elective maths, I had to do level 100 maths under a champon.
Yeah.
Which he interestingly referred to as A-levelization.
Yeah.
Because we were not that strong.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the difference?
Yeah, well, it's obvious. It's obvious that they must have discovered some deficiency that needed to be filled. And I'm afraid to say that those deficiencies are magnifying with time. We hear all the time, oh, this year's SHS results were fantastic. So many 8A1s and blah, 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 blah. These are the top people who get into the universities. If you ask any of our lecturers to give you a sort of summary of the results we see and how we manage to, make it possible for people to move to level 200, you will be amazed.
So
simple things that used to be learnt in Form 1, Form 2 in secondary school, we are now finding it difficult to get university students being able to. If I tell you, recently we had an MPhil seminar, and through questioning of the candidate, an issue came up and somebody asked, who won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 2023?
The year before this, the year that the person was being interviewed?
This was just last year, November or December or so. And the person didn't know. And the field in which the person won the Nobel Prize was the field in which this person was presenting his, and he didn't even know what the Nobel Prize was. MPhil chemistry student.
Wow.
So that should show you. I mean, I heard of Nobel Prize when I was still in the elementary school. What sort of knowledge are we giving to the modern people? Is it a question of just making A's or building a certain total body of knowledge for the rest of your life?
We need to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a bit about that, because we talk about the numbers. Some of the low quality is not just a consequence of the system, but also the population bulge, which has put excessive pressure on the schools. Point of view tonight, we're talking to Professor Addae-Mensah, a man who's gifted us over 600 pages in his part 1 autobiography. You need to get this book. And it's a really fascinating read. It has everything. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Point of View tonight is a special show. Professor Bernard Avle at 82. His autobiography, My Life Part 1. Part 2 is coming out shortly, hopefully. And we're just trying to work through the places, Western region, Ejumako, Bisiase, Takwa, Achimota. Now we're at Legon. You spoke about the university and the quality. I want to say beyond the changing system, we've not been able to plan for the population bulge. And we have to admit that.
Yeah. Before I go on to that,
yes,
let me just make two remarks. You've mentioned Bisiase, you've mentioned Takwa and all those places. You haven't mentioned Abrodunkwa.
My goodness.
If I don't mention it, Professor Aite
will not be
kill
happy.
me, because that's where it comes from. And that's where I started class 1. That's where it all began.
Abrodunkwa. I think that's where his mother comes from.
Yes, that's where the mother. But if his mother comes from there, that's where he comes from.
Okay.
Yes, but and he comes from Tokolegon also.
Jamestown.
Because the father is from.
So, but even I forget to mention Benin.
Yeah. Oh, that's my mother's hometown.
Which is in Jomoro.
Yeah, it's in Jomoro.
And Jomoro is next to, basically, Kwame Nkrumah and your father were very close friends.
Yeah, and Dr. Chama's father, the three of them.
Yes.
They were very, very close friends. Yeah, I have a picture of them.
In the wedding?
Yeah, the
so
wedding,
your father was?
The MC virtually. My father was like you.
Maybe one of my sons will become a VC, who knows? Very interesting indeed.
Yeah.
Of course, your journalistic side is probably from him.
Maybe.
Your taxonomical side.
Yeah, that's true. But I will also say that when I say that students we are getting, in spite of their high grades, are not performing to the level that we expect, that is not to say that all of them are like that. In fact, we have some very sharp students.
Yeah.
Really very, very good students. Excellent. Who can stand their own with anybody anywhere in the world. Let's not forget about that. Such people, no matter what sort of education system you have, no matter where you take them to, they will come out. My concern is with the people whom we have to hold by the hand and bring up.
Yeah.
That's where my concern is. And there are many.
I wanted to tell you something. When I was in Presec and in Form 3, we were 431.
Yeah.
I recently went to help with a speech day for the 85th. And the Form 3s were almost 1,700.
Yes.
The whole school is about 5,600.
Yes.
When I was in the school, they were about 1,000.
Yes.
So some of the challenge has just been exacerbated by free SHS.
Yes.
What are your thoughts? Because again, as VC, you had to deal with numbers. When you were in Legon, you were 2 in a room.
Yes.
We were 5 with 4 pitches in the same Legon hall that you were in. Talk to me a bit about that.
Yes. When we started with 2 in a room, that was also as a result of the change of the school year from January to December to September to June.
Yes.
So in 1962 October, 2 sets of students were admitted. Those who did the Cambridge Higher School certificate in December 1961 were admitted in June 1962. And those of us who did the London GCE advanced level in June 62 joined them also in October 62. So there were 2 groups. So in the first year, naturally, what used to be 1 person in a room had to become 2 people in a room. And that's when the idea of building the annexes started, thinking that that would be enough to solve the problem as we went on. But of course, with the number of schools that Nkrumah had built and all that was going on, education was really growing. Sheer numbers of qualified people also necessitated that, apart from the infrastructure that was there, we needed to, sort of increase the infrastructure, because the secondary schools too were having a sort of bottleneck. More and more people were getting into the secondary schools. More secondary schools were being established. That would mean more university students coming up. When Volta Hall was built with a capacity of about 120 people, BAM said that it would take about 20 or 30 years
to fill it up. How wrong he was.
How wrong it was. He was within a matter of 8 years. Volta Hall was built in an annex. You know, so most of the governments underestimated the growth of the population. We should not only have expanded the existing facilities, we should have added on to them much faster than...
So build new universities, possibly?
Build new universities. Of course, at a certain point in time, we started doing that. I think it was during Professor Mills's time that more universities...
Yes, so there was the Sunyani one, there's the whole one.
The conversion of the original Takwa Technical School through...
UMAT.
Up to UMAT.
Of course, that for you was more like a... because of all your nostalgic feelings about Takwa.
It was really good. And I'm happy that I became a member of the Fairs Council of UMAT. Because I knew the town and I thought I had something to offer.
So question, looking at the model you spoke about, government, Achimota, assisted and then encouraged. Do you not think our private universities also need that kind of arrangement where you have public universities, private assisted, and because now there's Central, there's Valley View and all these Methodists as well, they help. And the numbers are so many, UPSA and that kind of thing. What are your thoughts around how to expand university education using the same model you described?
You know, during the Mills-Mahama period, an attempt was actually made to do just that. A committee was set up, followed by an international conference, which was facilitated by Professor CNB Tego, which they call differentiation and whatever it is. And they were going to differentiate the various universities, research universities, teaching and research, similar to what happened in the secondary schools. And after the international conference, a committee was set up to actually plan the nitty-gritties, co-chaired by me and Professor Addae-Mensah. We came up with a very comprehensive report. But like many other committees that have been set up, especially on education in this country, these reports always come out just about a year before that regime is going
and the new government is not interested.
And then the new government is not interested. But I can tell you for sure that there was a plan to go in that direction so that we could classify our universities, and that will make it possible for government to determine the levels of assistance to give. But of course, with a system where nowadays the subventions
even the public investors don't get enough subventions, and they're even charging fee paying.
Exactly. How can you?
But there should be the appetite, because for a country to do well, you know that human resource. I look at your floor in Legon Hall Annex A. In the names I see there, Eskwami Tete, your friend Fiajo, even Enoch Agbozo. These are all pioneers. You know, it's almost like everybody there became something.
In fact, that list is like a who is who in Ghana now. You know, virtually everybody there became somebody. Addae-Mensah,
even the registrar.
Kwekuche. I mean, mention them. They are there.
So there needs to be a closer look at how to expand tertiary university education.
Yes.
If the population, because again, the countries that have done well, Singapore, South Korea, there's high levels of education across. University is not for just 2% or 10%.
No.
Everybody can read and write and think at a certain level.
And in fact, in principle, I love this idea of the technical universities. The only problem is that they seem also to be falling into the same trap of mission creep, where they also want to be like the old ones. Sooner or later, you see Sunyani Technical University wanting to do law. Instead of focusing on the niche that has been created for them, like it's in Germany. You know, my senior brother went to the Technical University of Munich, which was close to the University of Munich. University of Munich, they were doing philosophy, anthropology, and medicine, of course. But the Technical University It is their students who did the soil quality determination for the building of the Olympic Stadium in Munich for the 1972 Olympic Games. And at that time, he was a research student in in the Technical University of Munich. This is the direction in which we should be going. We shouldn't allow our technical universities to become like any other. And if this differentiation and redirection of the universities had taken place, that is where, if well implemented, that's the direction that we would have taken. But the report is lying there.
I'll find it and read it on air. Part 1 dealt with life before 40. You've already done the Liman biography, which I can say deals a lot with the end of part 1 and the beginning of part 2.
Yes.
What should we expect in part 2?
Part 2, you will expect when I was in exile in Abidjan, my fellowship at the University of Erlangen in Germany, my subsequent professorship in the University of Nairobi, my return to Ghana after 5 years on the invitation of Professor Akila Pasoya, all the way to when I became Vice Chancellor, into my retirement, into today.
I was at the University of Ghana last month and somebody was talking about the continuity, the architecture, the greenery. It seems to me that the country has something to learn from at least that university.
Yes.
You just mentioned Akila Pasoya. There was also George Bene. There was yourself. There was a Sensory. There's Tego. And then there was Aite, and now there was also Udro, and then there's Abamfo. And for the first time, we have 3 men in the university. What can a university teach a country?
Oh, a lot, if the country is prepared to learn. But you know, we have this attitude that, those book-long people, they think they know everything. So, unfortunately, we don't make good use of our intellectuals in this country. We don't. And so they also just sit back and do their research and publish and get their promotion. I mean, let me give you an example. This lithium thing that we are talking about, we've been talking about economics and all that. Not a single scientist has been interviewed on this lithium thing. At least I haven't heard it on any station, TV or radio. And yet we have scientists with the best knowledge, including some of our scientists in the diaspora. Professor Asare, who is in the American Engineering Hall of Fame. He's a materials engineer. He is currently in this country as a visiting professor at the engineering school in the University of Ghana. He's done a lot of free teaching at both Legon and Kumasi. Whilst he was here, he was even invited for a short visit to South Africa to go and do some teaching. He's an expert in this area. Talk to Kwame Pienim, he will tell you that when it comes to lithium, he has consulted Oseo Asare. But this is somebody who is sitting here. I met him on the day of the launch of the book. He was around, and nobody has talked to him, as if scientists don't know anything about the economics of lithium.
Meanwhile, we are talking about spodumene, we are talking about lithium carbonate. Where do we even, when we say we are adding value, at which of the levels do we add value before we export?
For example, are you aware that at the moment research is going on, even research in our own department in chemistry, to look at the possibility of sodium as an alternative to lithium, because they are in the same group in the periodic table, and getting sodium is from the sea, which is far more abundant than what we find in lithium rocks. The only problem is that the electrolytic process for getting sodium from the sea has a lot of problems. The byproducts are many. But this is where the scientist comes in and can tell you how to do an integrated sort of thing. But if, just in case, people are able to develop the technology for using sodium-based batteries,
it changes the game.
It changes the game.
Because the deposits of sodium abundant.
It's in abundance. And, you know, we are not thinking ahead. I mean, I don't want to say that if it had been Nkrumah, he would have thought far ahead of this.
But he would have. It's there for all of us to see. Well, reflections on Ghana and all things in your 82 years. Congratulations. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, for sharing my thoughts on my 82nd birthday. I pray to God that I will get a few more years to be able to complete part 2.
You definitely need to.
Yeah.
We know you will. We've been speaking to Professor Addae-Mensah, who's the author of his latest book, My Life. Part 2 is coming out. Former VC of University of Ghana, a man of many parts who's shared his life with us, whether through broadcasting, through history, sport, chemistry, or just running public institutions. Thank you for watching. My name is Bernard Avle. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.